67 of 2019 was The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. This book is all about human nature and all about kind of trying to understand human nature. A lot of the time we kind of think that people are like evil and nasty for doing things that if we did, we'd probably make excuses for. So Robert Greene's kind of like talking about how people might come across like they're not very nice, but actually it's human nature to kind of think of people as worse off than what we are, even if we did the same behaviour. You know, if our friends had done something, we'd probably excuse that behaviour, but if someone that we didn't know had done that behaviour, we wouldn't do. So that's kind of a little bit of it that's kind of explained. Greene kind of posits that when people are responding to us in a way that's not very nice, that it's better for us to kind of take our emotions out of it and to respond in a strategic way, because then that allows us to deal with that person without the person's emotionality infecting our own and making us kind of emotional and irrational. There's plenty of people around that are very emotional about things because that's human nature, that's how we respond. But it's better to deal with them in a strategic way. He gives lots of examples from history. So, for example, Elizabeth I, Stalin, Erickson, Mary Shelley, to kind of illustrate aspects of human nature. So that was quite interesting. He kind of developed this idea of being naturally emotional, because he talks about how a lot of the time when we're emotional, it's leakage. It's like emotional leakage from when we were a child. We've kind of been emotional, but obviously at those, like when we're younger, we don't understand things very well. We don't understand why, like we're doing things. So we kind of just like keep it inside, and as we get older, that emotional leakage is kind of coming up. We're getting triggered by things in our environment that remind us of times in our childhood, and this is why it's important to deal with those people strategically, because it's not like they're intentionally being triggered. They're just being triggered by something and responding in the same way that they did when they were a child, which is, you know, not useful when they're an adult, because now they can actually think about the response and change it so that it's more appropriate. Greene also talks about narcissism. Everybody loves talking about narcissism and loves talking about like toxicity and stuff. I think what you've got to remember is it's a human trait to be narcissistic. Like most people are narcissistic initially when they're younger, and then they understand that. I mean, Greene says that the narcissism, you know, like things, for example, like on social media, on your phones and things, it's a very I culture. It's a very like, look at me, this is what I've been doing, look how important and how amazing I am, look how, or alternatively, look how flawed I am, and that makes me wonderful in the end. Like, a lot of people are on that bandwagon nowadays, aren't they? Because, you know, if you just came out and was like, oh, I'm amazing, then everyone would be like, oh, you're so arrogant. But if you come out and go, oh, there's so many things wrong with me, but look how good I am, like that's okay apparently. All narcissistic, you know, but what Greene is kind of suggesting is that that self-absorption allows you to tap into empathy, and therefore you can then switch it around and be less empathetic. Sorry, that was like a Freudian slip or something, because I was thinking I don't really agree with what I'm saying there. But anyway, he's suggesting that you can tap into empathy from your own narcissism. So narcissism therefore is a healthy trait to have initially, because it allows you to access empathy. But obviously if you don't ever get into empathy, then because it's basically self-empathy, you don't get into empathy, then it's not going to be useful to people. I don't think I said that very well, but I hope you got what I kind of meant. He talks as well about social masks and about how everybody around you has a social mask. I find this really weird because personally, like, I'm quite open, and what you see is what you get with me usually. But I think as I've been getting older, I've been starting to realise that I need to mask more things, because then that will oil the wheels of social interaction more, grease the wheels of social interaction more. What was I going to say then? Or you'll find that there's a lot of people around you that are envious of you and that are kind of hostile towards you, and like have desires that are in conflict with yours, but their social mask kind of means that you're not aware of it. But there's little things that Greene points out that you can tell very slightly when somebody is demonstrating hostilities towards you, when the mask slightly slips. So it's to be aware of that around people, what people are like on the face of things, is not usually how they are. That's not human nature to be like that. Like, it's odd for somebody to be quite real and you know what they're usually like, and that's why most people don't like that person, because they're doing something that they can't do. You know, they can't take off their mask. And also, if you take off your mask, you become quite disagreeable in group situations. So it doesn't work as in a group. It's not a good strategy for you know, dealing with groups of people. And so therefore, it's an aspect that Greene talks about in terms of human nature. Greene kind of talks about like avoiding toxic types, and I don't know if I agree with this or not, because yeah, people are toxic, like they have toxic behaviour, but I would doubt, like I would question whether that means that they're a toxic person. I think we've all got the potential to be toxic, you know, when we're all kind of obsessed with ourselves in certain aspects. Like, everyone's got narcissistic traits, everyone's got, you know, things about themselves that mean that they're not the best person all the time. So to kind of just write people off and avoid people, I don't know if I agree with that. I think that's a lot of that's kind of like I was gonna say the Geist then, but like that's kind of what most people are thinking you should do now. Like, if someone's toxic, just write them off. I don't think that's healthy for either person. Like, I think, you know, that person's probably, I mean, but then having said that, there probably are some people that are beyond saving, and I have got a saviour complex, so maybe that's why I'm seeing it like that. You know, maybe it is just best just to not engage with people that are toxic, or at least to minimise your engagement with them. I think that's probably a more beneficial solution. It was interesting that Greene talks about envy and about how people have quite fragile egos, and he gave like an example of Mary Shelley, who had a friend, and this woman was like really good friends with her, but yet this woman had gone around and spread rumours about her and was really quite nasty about her, and everyone believed her because she was friends with Mary Shelley, and so they thought, well, she must have insight into the life or whatever. And it kind of got me thinking about how when you're in a group of people and suddenly like you can tell like something's not quite right, like the people are being a little bit odd with you, and you're kind of like, something's being said by someone that's altered the opinions of the other people in the group, like you can just feel it. And like my response to that in the past used to be to get quite annoyed and be like, oh, you know, like how dare people like say bad things about me when I'm not there and stuff like that. But then I kind of just thought, it's human nature, this is what people do. Like, when people are insecure and they've got fragile egos, they like to put other people down, and they like to make comments about people that will sully the reputation of them in the eyes of others, so that, you know, they feel better about themselves. It's like a temporary release from their own pain. And so it's just human nature. That's what happens. That's what people do, you know, when they're feeling threatened by you and they're feeling insecure by you. Because in this example, Mary Shelley is she's amazing. Like, she's you know, she's a really good writer and very intelligent, and this woman who had befriended her, you know, didn't like her from the start and was horrible to her, you know, from the start. And yet Mary Shelley never saw it because it was all done very slyly and whatever. So it was just kind of like, don't trust everybody that's around you, because not everybody is nice and wants the best for you. Like, there's a lot of envious people that want to bring you down, and they will do it by, you know, making comments about you to other people. And I've come across lots of people like that before that have said things to other people, and unfortunately other people have believed them, because, you know, if I'm not there to defend myself, then, you know, they'll just believe, like, because they'll think, well, why is somebody going to lie about something like that? But people do. So, you know, if you hear somebody, you know, saying bad things about somebody else, I would question why that person's saying it, and maybe think like, is that person like, you know, envious of that other person or whatever? Because why would you go around saying mean things about someone else, especially when they're not there? But what Greene is saying is that it isn't a way of like reducing their own feelings of inferiority. Like, if they feel like the person is better than them, then by bringing them down and making everyone think badly of them, it reduces that feeling of inferiority. So it's human nature. It's just what people do. You know, there's no point getting annoyed about it. Like, it's just what's going to happen. And, you know, other people will see you for what you really are if you give it enough time. So and really as well, the other thing is, if people are going to believe somebody that's saying bad things about you, they haven't got a very good judge of character, so why would you want to be friends with them anyway? You know, probably it's not worth it, is it? Greene also says that if you are talented and you are really good at stuff, that it's better not to flaunt it and to be kind of humble about it and have humility, because there are going to be other people that are going to feel inferior to your talents and your achievements, and that actually, if you want to avoid people backstabbing and spreading rumours about you, then it's probably best to just keep it under wraps that you're really good at stuff, because unfortunately, you know, people have very fragile egos. there was a quote that said something like, confidence without self-control is grandiosity. I thought that was really, really interesting. It's like, you know, if you are very confident, you've got to be careful that you're not so confident that you're making other people feel like crap, basically. Which is like, you know, it's like, it's hard enough to be, for most people anyway, to be confident in yourself, and then you've also got to think about the impact that you're having on others, because your confidence could make other people feel inferior. It's like, bloody hell. So yeah, human nature, very, very difficult to navigate. The only downside that I had of the book was that it's not like well researched or backed up by studies or kind of cited or critically analysed or anything. It's very much just Greene commenting on human nature and using kind of examples in history. So whether or not I fully believe everything that he's saying, because like I said before, I disagreed with what you said about toxicity and kind of narcissistic traits. I mean, it would be good to think that this is all correct and whatever, because it's a very good discussion and was very interesting. But yeah, there was another thing as well, like he'd cited Erickson, not Erickson, what am I talking about? Ekman, and he was famous for doing it like cross-cultural emotion studies. There's been some new research out recently which has criticised that and said that actually that the way that those experiments were done were almost like prompting the people to the answers. So actually it doesn't show like a cross-cultural, you know, interpretation of faces, emotional faces like happiness, shock and things like that. They've done like other studies where they don't have the words on the bottom and things like that, and they've reckoned that there was a lot of like demand characteristics from the people that were being tested, because obviously it was Western people coming into like tribes areas, and also they were looking at Western faces. So there's a lot of things wrong with the experiment. So the fact that Greene cited that as a credible source makes me wonder whether this is dated and whether maybe it would benefit from more critical analysis of research to back up his argument, his premises. But it's quite interesting to find out about human nature from what he said. So it is kind of like worth a listen. It is quite long though, so I guess some of it you could skim, but like the essential parts of it were quite interesting.